now to discuss. Jonathan Schanzer, Executive Director of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and former U.S. Treasury Terror Finance Analyst. I'm also joined by Gordon Chang, Gatestone Institute Senior Fellow and China Analyst. He's also the author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Thank you both for being here today. Jonathan, I'd love to start with you. Do broad tariffs risk pushing adversaries like China and Iran closer together economically? Could that ultimately hurt U.S. leverage?
Well, here's the story. They are already working very closely together. We've been watching the Chinese do this for quite some time. Now, in recent days, the Iranian regime, as it comes under significant pressure from Donald Trump with that armada sitting out in the Persian Gulf, it actually looks like the Chinese are starting to get a little weak in the knees, concerned about maybe their involvement with the Islamic Republic. So if anything, right now, what we've been watching is a longstanding alliance that is buckling under the military pressure of Donald Trump's military policies. The economic policies don't seem to have much of an influence one way or the other. I think the Chinese are just getting a little nervous about investments lost if war breaks out in the region.
Okay, Gordon, you're the expert on China. Weak in the knees? What are your thoughts?
I think that China certainly is bluffing. They're telling the United States that it must not attack Iran, but they don't really have the means to prevent that. The interesting thing, though, Jessica, is that there is a joint naval exercise among Iran, Russia, and China, and their ships are very close to American warships. So you have in close proximity the beginnings of what could be a confrontation. I actually don't think the Chinese are going to do that for the reasons that Jonathan said. But the point is there's always a danger when you have so many combatants close to each other.
Sure. Gordon, let's stick with you for 1 second. You know, Trump is set to visit China at the end of March, as we know. So how do you think this new tariff ruling will play into those talks? And do you think that China now assumes a stronger position?
I think that China certainly has a much stronger position because of this. Now, President Trump imposed that additional 10% tariff under Section 122, as you just heard from Tom Dempsey. But the point is that the Chinese see that there's a lot of opposition in American society, and they see the way the American democracy works. President Trump, for a lot of reasons, should not be going to Beijing. And one of them is the turmoil in the regime right now. So this is a good time to stay away from China.
Interesting. Jonathan, do you agree with that?
Look, I think the president is trying to walk a bit of a tightrope here, right? I mean, he is trying to, I think, at the end of the day, reach a deal with the Chinese, trying to have an understanding with them about trade, about spheres of influence around the world. And I think he is gearing himself toward that, obviously sees himself as a deal maker. But yeah, I think there is a risk of engaging and maybe legitimizing the regime in Beijing. So I think the president has some choices ahead of him, but obviously it looks like full speed ahead right now.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, Gordon, let's pivot now to Iran. President Trump said earlier this week that he's hoping the country will make a deal in the next 10 to 15 days. Let's listen to some of his comments during the Board of Peace meeting.
And now is the time for Iran to join us on a path that will complete what we're doing. And if they join us, that'll be great. If they don't join us, that'll be great too. But it'll be a very different path. They cannot continue to threaten the stability of the entire region, and they must make a deal. Or if that doesn't happen, I maybe can understand. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But bad things will happen.
Okay, so what if it doesn't happen?
Well, at this point, I think President Trump needs to do something because he's got all those ships off of Iran's waters. And it doesn't have to be bombing Iran. So, for instance, he could interdict Iranian shipping. But he's got two things. It's not only the nuclear deal that he's looking at, it's also what the Iranian regime is doing to its own people. It's executed tens of thousands of them. We don't know how many. But this has got to stop. And if it doesn't stop, it's a real lesson to China that the United States is not as strong as its words. We may have a lot of ships, but it's an issue of will. And Beijing sometimes thinks the United States lacks will. That's a very dangerous view on the part of the Chinese.
Jonathan, final words?
Look, I think Gordon's right, but I think there are a couple of other factors that we need to be looking at right now. There is the Iranian regime's missile program, which is threatening the entire region. It can hit energy sector assets all around the region. That's unacceptable. It can hit American bases, American embassies. That's also unacceptable. Not to mention the allies that are very, very nervous about Iran's capabilities. We have those terror proxies, and that's also part of the discussion right now. But Gordon's right. Absolutely. We've got the nuclear program that needs to be settled. On top of that, the human rights problems. This is a regime that has been destabilizing the region now for decades. I think the president is right to finally be putting this regime to a test, telling it basically it's either time to join us and quit all of this or pay a significant price. I don't see the regime backing down. So at some point, the president is going to have to make a very fateful decision.
All right, Jonathan Schanzer, Gordon Chang, thank you both for your time. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Well,